Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is absolutely crucial, yet frequently misunderstood. We're taking a really close look at protection from sexual exploitation and abuse, or PSEA for short, and specifically zooming in on Action Area 3, strengthening systems in country. Our goal today is actually pretty simple, but it's a real game changer. We want to take PSEA from being just a theoretical compliance checklist, that dusty piece of paper sitting on a desk, and transform it into an active, observable, everyday leadership practice. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our structured roadmap for mastering this practical toolkit. We'll start by moving beyond the paper policy, then figure out how to identify the missing voices in our systems. From there, we'll learn how to read the weak signals, take a look at what observable leadership in action actually is, and finally, build your practical action plan. All right, Section 1, Beyond the Paper Policy. First things first, we have to shatter the illusion of safety.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Look, just because you have a written rule doesn't mean you have actual protection. On the left here, we've got a super vague message. PSEA is important. Okay, sure, but that tells a vulnerable person literally nothing. Now compare that to the actionable message on the right. It clearly lays out the expected standard of behavior, who is responsible, and gives specific, safe reporting options, all in plain language. That is how you empower communities, instead of just checking a compliance box.
This brings us to a foundational concept for this explainer, and that's disciplined practice. Listen, moving from basic awareness to disciplined practice is the true challenge here. It's like building a daily habit. It means you're constantly taking those high-level PSEA principles and converting them into visible routines. You're doing continuous risk assessments and making tangible management choices. You're not settling for theoretical awareness anymore. You're actively watching your operating environment and tweaking things way before a crisis forces your hand. That leads us right into Section 2, identifying the missing voices. If we want our systems to actually work on the ground, we have to recognize the lived reality of different communities. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these diverse realities play out for different people in the field. Let's look at Sophia. She's a sub-office manager out in an isolated, hard-to-reach location. The barriers she faces when trying to report something are totally different from someone like Bilal, who's coordinating partner agreements from a well-connected headquarters. If you design a one-size-fits-all PSEA system, you are absolutely guaranteeing it will fail someone like Sophia. We've got to test our plans against all these diverse perspectives. And think about this, it's a pretty surprising reality. An online-only reporting channel is always pitched to us as this modern, highly efficient solution, right? But I want to ask you directly, whose voice is missing? When organizations rely exclusively on fancy web-based tools, they often completely shut out vulnerable, low-connectivity communities, older folks, or people who just don't have digital literacy. An over-reliance on tech can actually turn into a massive barrier to protection. So by paying attention to that lived reality, we start developing a really crucial skill. Section 3, reading the weak signals long before harm occurs. These bullets outline exactly what we mean by weak signals. It's stuff like a PSEA network meeting getting delayed month after month, or an incredibly unclear clause in a partner agreement. Maybe it's someone making an offhand, informal joke about community complaints, or a PSEA budget line getting quietly removed without any management discussion. It is so easy to brush these off as minor administrative hiccups, but they aren't. They're actual early warning signs. They broadcast to your entire team and your partners what the organization truly values.
Let's move to and see how this builds a disciplined response. When you spot one of these weak signals, you don't panic, and you absolutely do not launch some informal, harmful investigation yourself. Instead, you stick to this four-step process. First, separate the facts from assumptions. Second, consult the appropriate focal point or manager. Third, rigorously protect confidentiality. And fourth, agree on the next safe step together. This is how you stop a minor system weakness from blowing up into a full-blown crisis, all while keeping people safe from retaliation.
Once we know how to read those signals, we have to talk about who's setting the tone. Section 4, observable leadership in action. Because true leadership here isn't just a one-off speech. It's all about consistency. So the crucial point is captured perfectly right here. Personnel and partners notice silence. I really want you to let that sink in. Your staff are paying very close attention. They notice if senior leaders skip out on the PSEA briefings. They notice if you don't follow up on funding commitments. And they definitely notice when you avoid asking the difficult questions. Silence communicates that PSEA just isn't a real priority, no matter what your beautifully written policy says. So how do we break that silence? We have to translate this abstract idea of accountability into tangible nouns and verbs. Practical evidence of leadership looks like tracking actual training completion rates. It looks like actively reviewing partner capacity assessments. It means making sure that reporting channels are actually functioning and referral pathways are up to date. Show me meeting minutes where leadership is making real decisions on PCA risks and prove that the budget is actually being executed. These are the observable, concrete actions that actively prove management is putting safety first. However, quick timeout here. As we gather all this great evidence, we have to strictly adhere to one crucial rule. Evidence of progress should never, ever expose victims, survivors, complainants, or witnesses to retaliation. Yes, leadership absolutely needs data from management oversight. You have to know the system works. But this information must remain strictly locked down. You have to draw a hard line between the aggregate data you need for oversight and the highly sensitive details that must be restricted to preserve the integrity of the process and protect people.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground, and now it's time to put it all into practice. Section 5, your practical action plan. We're talking quick wins and structural fixes. This right here is your concrete, prioritized blueprint. It's how you balance immediate steps with long-term solutions. So within the next 72 hours, your goal is to look at your current reality, find those missing voices, and prioritize your immediate risks. Then within 2 weeks, you want to implement a quick win. This doesn't have to be a heavy lift. It could literally be adding PSEA as a standing item on your weekly management meeting agenda, or just updating contact info on a poster. Then, looking ahead to the next quarter, you plan and execute a structural fix. Maybe that means securing a dedicated budget line or getting formal senior endorsement for a new partner onboarding process. It's about making steady, observable progress.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. How will you know whether your action actually reduced risk rather than simply creating just another document? Because at the end of the day, the ultimate test of your PSEA system isn't how impressive the paperwork looks. It's whether a vulnerable person out in an isolated field office can safely speak up, actually be heard, and truly be protected. Take this action plan, sit down with your team, and start doing the disciplined work. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.